All right, BLaKBoXXRadio. We're in the box tonight. I'm telling you, tonight is a special night. It's BBR Wednesdays. This is our new programming, which we're going to try to be on every Wednesday. But when we program, they will be on Wednesdays at 7. And we might move around a little Wednesdays, maybe do some mornings, some afternoons, but we're going to do Wednesdays. So BBR Wednesday. So check us out on Wednesdays when we come on and we talk about we're Black centered and we have all these Black conversations. And today we're in the KingHim series. And it is a series that we do that's especially for men. And men are special. We know that men are special, but Black men are especially special. And so this series is more for Black men, and we like to platform the genius of Black men. And so tonight, that's what we're in. We're in the Kingdom. You see that king we got sitting over there? We got his crown on. We both crowned up tonight. We got his crown on. I got my crown on. I'm Queen. I am a host at BLaKBoXXRadio. We are a multimedia platform illustrating Black excellence. We platform Black people, we expose Black genius, and we disseminate information to the Black community and other communities. And tonight, we're in a series that I don't think no one does, but we King Men, and it's just for men. And we have Cleo Manago. Say hi to the people.
Greetings, community. Good evening. Hello, Queen.
You so subdued. I love it. And so professional. I just love it. But I'm excited because Dr. Manago is special. He's done so much for our community. He's continued to work in our community. And not only is he my guest, he's my friend. I'm inspired by him, his work. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Some of your work, some of your thoughts. We're gonna drop some jewels tonight, Cleo. We got some jewels to drop. You know, I know you down for it. And you ready to speak truth to power? Get your water, wet your throat. We about to go. Wet your throat, bro. So listen, I want you to kind of explain Cleo Manago first. Because a lot of times people come on and you're just talking about your work and how, you know, you're a genius and all those different things. But kind of tell us who Cleo Manago is, where he's from, that type of. Give us a little backstory on you, and then we're going to jump in on your work and all of that.
Okay. This will be very impromptu. My name is Cleo Manago. I hail from Compton, California. I came from a working class / some people say poor, economically distressed community and home that was full of some of the generational traumas and behaviors that Black people often exhibit that are not helpful to us. There was love there to the extent that it was possible, but I saw dysfunction everywhere. And I mention that because that was very real to me as a child. For some reason, I came here hardwired to be very analytical, very perceptive and observational. And when I was as young as 3 years old, if something didn't make no sense to me, I couldn't leave it. In contrast to my sisters, I'm the only boy out of 4 children, 3 girls. They would just look at it and move on. When I saw something crazy, and I saw a lot of crazy stuff, including domestic violence and some other stuff, I would go, you know, what's going on here? Yeah. So trying to make this long story more abbreviated, by the time I got to 11th grade, after experiencing a lot of things, including dysfunction and what I know now to be internalized oppression among Black people, I discovered psychology when I was in 11th grade. It was one of the electives that I could take, and I learned about Jung and Freud and the fathers of psychology in the Western world and the field of mental health. I was also a budding musician, but I was intrigued by mental health because when I realized it was supposed to be a tool used to treat mental illness and emotional illness / psychological challenges, I said, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play music so I can keep my sanity. But professionally, I'm going to seek mental health. Now, during that same time, I was like 14, something like that. I also was discovering that we live in a society that was not particularly fair to Black people.
At 14?
Well, yeah. I mean, I was a Black child, and I was experiencing. I went from being a little boy to a menace to society.
Wow.
And I experienced that transformation, and it was traumatizing, confusing, alarming. But I had nobody to talk about it to, I should say, because my family was not into that stuff. I had very young parents who did not know what they were doing. They loved us, but they did not know what they were doing. They did not read a handbook on how to be functional, intentional parents. And when I graduated from high school and when I first started college, my first job was as a paraprofessional at what's the name of that place? Gateway's Community Mental Health Center in Echo Park, California.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized in that job that, okay, Freud and Jung and the mental health system is designed for white folks or for people who are not going to address the particular experience of being Black in the context of this country, both historically and in modern society.
Wait a minute. Let me ask a question when you said that.
Sure.
I'm really going to ask this because it kind of segues into what Black people feel sometimes about mental health. Like that's for white people. And I think sometimes that people reach out for help, and when they do go to help, it has no cultural adhesion to the person that they feel that it's not for them. And so since this country is majority ran by white folks, the first thing we say is that's for white people. That ain't for us. You know what I'm saying? So do you correlate that kind of with how it's set up from the beginning?
Well, first of all, I don't know about your experience, but I had family from coast to coast, from Buffalo, New York to Los Angeles. Nobody even mentioned the word mental health. Nobody even mentioned the word trauma. Mm-hmm. And very rarely did somebody even mention the word racism. And when they did, they were whispering. And there was no invitation to address these issues. But getting back to your question even more deeper, the reason that we think is for white folks, for many reasons, is because we don't talk about it. They do. We've seen movies and streaming shows and shows on TV about a therapist or a mental health person or somebody sitting up in a chair and talking to their therapist, and it's usually a white person. And if it's a Black person, which it is sometimes, they're talking to a white person. They're not talking to somebody Black. And if they do talk to somebody Black at all, there's no reference to the Black experience. So those all recreate the perspective of this ain't for us. And then you have people who had the experience my mother had, who tried therapy and needed it and needs it desperately, who was stuck with some white man who was taking notes while she was talking, but was not able to meaningfully engage what she was going through. So this tangent is relevant to where I started in terms of what happened at Gateways, because I had a hard time there. I worked with dual diagnosed children who had been abused, and the children were Black, white, all colors of the rainbow. The Black children who had gone through the same kind of abuse or some sort of abuse that the rest of the children went through were the only kids who referenced their abuse with something negative about being Black. And the other children never even had a racialized framework at all regarding their abuse. But the Black children who, who had heard the N-word and sit your Black ass down and N-words ain't shit. I hope I can say that on this show.
Yeah, she can. You sure can.
The whites and the Asians did not hear the equivalent. No, Latinos ain't shit. Or to be even more profane, beaters ain't shit, whitbacks ain't shit, chinks ain't shit. They didn't hear that. That's not even in their scope of reference.
Yes. Yes, your internet is acting up. Yes, that is in the scope of reference. I love that.
So when I discovered this at Gateway, okay, I'm back now. Am I back?
Yeah, your internet. You're back now. Yes.
When I discovered this at Gateways, let me back up. You can't hear me though, right?
I can hear you now.
Okay. When I attempted to talk to Dr. Ramirez, who was a whitewashed Latino, white wife, the whole thing, about making the services more conducive to Black people's lives, and not for everybody, but I'm sorry, let me make this clear. I didn't want him to make the place Black. I wanted him to make sure that people who were on staff understood the Black experience so they can engage the clients in a way that was culturally informed.
Exactly.
Troublemaker. I was called angry, and I wasn't particularly angry. I was sad and frustrated, but anger was not necessarily what I demonstrated. But when you look like me, when you cough too loud, you're angry.
You're angry, yes.
And if you challenge whiteness, you're angry.
Are you confrontational? Are you difficult?
Right.
Yeah.
All of that. So I wind up quitting. And it was when I was there, and I was barely in my 20s. It was at that job that made me fantasize about one day building my own community center. Now, it was a fantasy. I was blowing off steam, and I didn't really expect it to happen at that age. But I was saying, "Oh, I wish that I could build something because these systems they're not going to get it."
Yeah.
So this
is after you've already got your PhD and everything, or
no. I didn't do that
earlier. This was in your teens. This was early.
Yeah, I didn't finish that work until 8 years ago.
So you wanted to do all of this in your teens as a clinic of your own?
Well, I said a community center.
A community center? Wow.
Yeah, but like I said, I was just fantasizing. I really didn't know how to do it or expect to do it. And also, as I mentioned before in passing, I was also a professional musician.
Yeah, people don't know that. So this is why the backstory is so important. People don't know that you can pluck a daggone bass.
Yeah.
And that you were bad at it.
I can pluck a daggone bass, and I was bad. B-A-A-D.
You was bad at it.
Yeah. But no, I didn't. My story in terms of academia is a peculiar one, but it did not occur until I was in my early 30s. I started college right out of high school, but the racism, I never had any tolerance for racism. I'll give you one story, and that's it about that, because that would be very tangential. When I was still in my teens, in my first year of college, I studied sight reading. Do you know what sight reading is?
I have no idea.
Okay, sight reading is being able to read notes off a page and sing the notes. Be able to know a note by reading it and being able to voice it or sing it by sight.
Oh, that's why I don't know what that is, because I can't do that.
So I was in a sight reading class, and it was 3 Black people, one young male, myself, and a young lady. We had been in the class, for about a month or two, and this teacher was just obnoxious. Well, one of the songs that we were given to proofread was "Swing Low, See Chariot."
Ooh.
So everybody had to take a turn sight reading the book. And when it got to me, apparently I was clearly nervous or hesitant. And this is what the teacher said to me. He said, "Just think about how you feel when you're sitting on your mammy's knee." That's what he said to me. And the other Black people were uncomfortable, but they didn't say nothing. And not all, but many of the white kids were cracking up.
Oh, they thought it was funny.
Yeah, they thought it was funny. And I was offended, and I got up and left the class, and I went to the dean's office. All these are white folks, by the way. I went to the dean's office, and to make a long story short, he didn't do nothing. He made no actions to talk to this teacher. And and a year into college, I dropped out. Between the whiteness of the curriculum, the racism, the lax behavior in the presence of it among Black people who wasn't gonna say nothing. I was like,
I know. What school was this?
This was Long Beach State University.
Really?
in Long Beach.
Well, and this was a time where there wasn't as black wasn't as sexy. See, a lot of people don't understand that black wasn't sexy. Blacks is just getting sexy. The black experience is just getting oh, maybe there was something. It is something that went wrong. Then folks were arrogant. They were powerful, and they did not concede to anything black, especially a powerful black man. Am I correct?
Well, you're correct. And
And
there were always people that I saw in my life and time that were black affirming and that did step up. That includes the Black Panthers.
okay.
That includes the Nation of Islam when
Mm,
Farrakhan was fledgling. And I believe when I was much younger, I think Elijah might have even been alive, Elijah Muhammad. Anyway, and that's a whole nother story in terms of my growing up.
yes.
When by chance, when I was in junior high school, this is before I discovered psychology, I had a best friend who was in the Nation of Islam, and I went to their mosque in LA. Before that, when I was about 6 or 5, our babysitter, whose name was Pokey, I'll never forget Pokey. Pokey was this beautiful sister who was in her probably early 20s, and she had reddish hair, but she was black, purely black. But her hair was, I think she kind of dyed it slightly red, but she kept it natural. It wasn't on this straight crap. And she had 2 big
Afro puffs.
Afro puffs. Anyway, what you know about Afro puffs? Anyway, anyway, when she was our babysitter, and when my mother dropped us off at Pokey's, Pokey took my 3 sisters and I to the Black Panther house for breakfast.
Oh, so you had the breakfast on the bank for when the Black Panthers was really doing it.
Yes.
Wow, when the sisters was feeding the children.
There's an alarm going on that I have to stop. Just a moment. I'll be
Okay,
right back.
no
I'm sorry.
So you guys hear that? We're talking to history too. That's why I like the backstory, because he just told us that he was a part of the program that the Black Panthers started in LA that fed black children. This is the same program that the architecture that the US has used to feed children in schools. So they spoke about the Panthers, but they emulated this program that they first did to feed black children in LA. And we're hearing history because he was a part of that. And how was that? How did the Black Panthers treat black children?
That's what I was getting ready to say.
Let's go.
We're talking about my development, how I came to be, and how I was triggered to be a critical thinker. And I had prefaced my comments with being very analytical and very observant. One of the things that was amazing about going to the Black Panthers house, was called the Black Panther house, for breakfast on many occasions, is that they were so loving. Baby, you want some more pancakes? Baby, you need some more bacon? And I don't eat bacon no more, but I was a baby then. Baby, you want some bacon? They were just so sweet and so kind. Whether it was male or female, we were baby, we were honey, we were sweetie. I get emotional think about it because they were so kind and they loved serving us food, us babies food. But this is the contrast that I found intriguing. At night on the news, they were called, what were the words that people were using? Terrorist. They were called all these negative, horrible names. And revolution, militant. I mean, it was all negative. And the problem I had is that I couldn't tell my mama, who was sitting right, or my father figure who was sitting right there, because Pokey told us, shh.
So you couldn't even talk about it.
Don't say nothing. Matter of fact, my mother to this very day may not even know about Pokey in the Black Panthers house. But I was watching TV.
What year? Can you give us like a year? What year was
this? Was in the 60s.
This was in the 60s. Okay.
That's all I'm gonna say. I ain't giving them.
Yeah, that's all I want to know. The 60s. Okay.
But this was in the 60s.
Yeah, because we hear about the Black Panther, we hear all this negative, and I want folks to understand that media definitely tweaks the way that we think and the way that we approach things. It's the perception of what the media thinks. It then gives us what we call the news. It's not news. It's someone's perception of what
it's propaganda.
It's
what it is.
propaganda. And that's
Yeah.
what we got to understand. We're being informed every day with someone's propaganda. And so
Yeah.
they were saying, the same people who were calling you baby and love bug, that night on the news, these were killers, terrorists, unpatriotic people because they love Black people. That's what we're talking
Right.
about here.
But
So
of
go ahead.
course, that part, the love Black people part, was not articulated. They were
Ah,
just all these things. But my family, who was influenced by King James Bible and white
very
Jesus and all
good.
those other myths, had
Yes.
no comment on it. And if they did have a comment on it at all, the implication was negative.
Mm.
But people in my family weren't even treating me as nice as the Black Panthers. You know, all this sweetiness and honey. And it wasn't just me. I mean, I would love to say it was just me. No, all of us were treated, and it was a lot of us. We lived in the Imperial Courts projects in Watts. So it was a lot of poor kids who flocked to this breakfast.
Yes.
That they
Free breakfast in the morning. Yes.
yeah,
Before
that
school.
they served us with so much love, and it was so endearing. And that influenced me into thinking something's wrong here.
Yeah.
Something's wrong here. Now I had to figure it out on my own.
Yeah.
But I'm like, and I didn't understand the Black Panthers. I mean, I didn't know what the Black Panthers were. I don't know what they did. Now they had posters on the wall. They even had a poster of the brother that was murdered. Darn it. I can't believe I can't remember his name. Anyway.
Well, not the one in his bed.
The one who was murdered in his bed next to his wife.
Yeah, and with the baby. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I get it by the end of the thing.
Yeah, I can't think of his name right now.
His son is doing the work now. I get it to you.
Yeah, but they had
not
pictures
Huey
on the wall.
Newton. Not
No,
Huey. So that's another name.
He was murdered here
I understand.
He was murdered in '89, right before I moved to Oakland. That's a whole nother story.
In the bed with his pregnant wife.
But damn, I've never forgotten.
I get it. Go ahead.
But anyway, they had this stuff on the wall, and I didn't know. I didn't know. You know, I didn't get it. I didn't know about racism yet. But I did know that Baby, Honey, and Sweetie, every time we went there, did not fit militant, terrorist.
Yeah.
And what these white folks were saying about them. So that was very powerful.
Right.
Then years later, because I was barely in first grade at this point. Years later, when I was in junior high school, which they now call middle school, that's when I met Gregory Freeman, who was my best friend, who was in the Nation of Islam, and I went to their temple. So, spirit, if you will, or
you talking about Fred Hampton?
Fred Hampton, that's who it was. Destiny, if you will, had me these things in my line of witnessing and experience as a child by chance, because I certainly didn't seek these things.
Okay.
So about the time I got to Gateway's Mental Health Center in Echo Park, I was already awake, very awake, to the phenomenon of racism. I had an analysis already about, okay, Black folks are tripping, and my family is tripping, and people who are similar are tripping because of unresolved issues that we have inherited through a brutal experience called enslavement and dehumanization that we are not giving any voice to, that we're not articulating, that we're looking at the symptoms all day long, but the N-word, and this is still true, the N-word and the anti-Black implications implies that we're not important enough to have resolution. You know, that we're not important enough to get out of crisis and get out of trauma. We just N-words. You know, act your age, not your color. I don't know if you've ever heard that line before, but I heard that line before.
Yes.
And so but one more experience, then I'll come back to more contemporary things that was very powerful for me. And I was in elementary at this time. So this was after the Black Panthers, but it was before the Nation of Islam. Okay. I went to Tibby Elementary School in Compton. It was an interracial school. And some kids, they were either white or Latino, I forgot which one, I think they might have been white, called me, the famous word. And Also said some low rating anti-black things to get the put some umph on it or to underscore the insult. So I went home to my grandmother's house, who lived near Tibby Elementary School, and told her what happened. And she said to me, with a straight face, without even flinching, she said, we are the children of Ham and Eggs or Noah or somebody in the Bible. I forgot who it is now.
Him and Shem.
Some of them people. I used to know this stuff because I used to play piano in Sunday school, but I forgot it all because I got other things to do with my brain cells. But anyway, my grandmother told me that get over it. This is our destiny. We're black. This is God's will. So, and I'm sitting here crying before she even said that. I was crying because I was wounded by the experience.
Yeah.
She was like,
pack it in.
Fluff it off.
Fluff it off.
Yeah,
that's what we've been doing. That's why we're so crazy right now.
Right.
We're manifesting all that packing in.
Yeah. And as a baby, I was like, no, not to her. I didn't say that out loud.
But you like, something ain't right here.
Yeah, I said, something ain't right. and I'll end this long ass story about my development by saying this.
What?
When I was in the 11th grade, I'll never forget it. We were in Mr. Rogers' class. His name was Mr. Rogers, and he was the biology teacher. And he lived near Hermosa Beach, and a dolphin had beached itself and died near his house. So he brought the dead dolphin, to class to dissect. And we had to remember the different parts of the dolphin, the dorsal fins, the blah, 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 blah. And the next day we had to take a test. So there was these two white kids, we were all kids, who sat behind me, but not directly behind me. One sat in this seat and one sat in this seat. And they were always looking at I was quote unquote smart and always getting good grades. So they were always copying off of my paper, and they were looking, and one day I just went off, poor things. The kids didn't know what hit them. I said, I'm laughing now, but I didn't laugh then. I was serious as a heart attack. I said, wait a minute, wait. Y'all supposed to be better than me. Y'all supposed to be superior to me. Y'all supposed to be the people that everybody wants to be. Why y'all copying off of my paper? And these were babies. They were like I said, I'm laughing now, but I was heart attack. I was heart attack at that time. And I said, because first of all, they were busted for copying off my paper, number one. Yeah. Number two, the racial analysis was throwing them off. And they were like, but anyway, that was a very important experience for me too. Because I told you I was very, very analytical. And I was like, y'all, I should be copying off of y'all paper because y'all supposed to be better than me. Why y'all keep? And they were like, they didn't know what to do. They were like, anyway, there's other things I could tell you.
You had pivotal experiences in your life that made you prepare you for where you are now. The Black Panthers, the Nation of Islam, and then these little things that people have in their life. And I think as Black people, we all have these, what I call the blackout experiences, where everything is Black. Like, it's a difference when you're in the world and you're mixing with the Indians and the Asians, and it's all these different colors. But when it's a time in the world where Black people have the blackout experience, where everything is Black. What I'm saying that's everything is Black. What we do is Black. The expectation for Black, I call them blackout experiences, where we have all of these heavy loads put on us as if we superpowers. And I can see how a group of people who try to annihilate you and see that you continue to prosper even in your trauma, they have to understand that there's something super about you. So I'm clear that in all actuality, they know there's something there, but they have to continue the oppression and all of the marketing.
They're real clear.
Huh?
They're real clear.
They're really clear. And so that segs us into your work as a trance breaker. So kind of tell us about the trauma trance and trance break, because that is the problem of the African. Yeah.
Well, where I go to when I'm asked that question is where I'm going to go to now, and I hope it's comprehensible. The Clarks a married couple of psychiatrists, created what's now known as the doll test. And the test was developed in the late 30s, almost to the 40s in the United States. And the test consisted of a black doll or doll that was brown and a doll that was pink that was called white, and the brown doll was called black. And the black children who were children like 5 years old, etc., were told to pick the doll that they thought was to their liking, or that they thought was the good doll. And the majority of them chose the white doll. And that's been the case ever since, even up until 2022, where a professor at a Texas university did it again recently. But how this is relevant to the trance, there's a documentary that a young lady made in the early 2000s called A Girl Like Me, where she too recreated the doll test. One baby, they're all
having a little technical difficulty.
Precious babies, beautiful children who ironically thought they were life. I was gone for a minute, right? I don't know what happened. Or
now you
was I gone for a minute?
Yeah, you were. You're back now.
Okay. These beautiful babies, these adorable, beautiful children of African descent, majority of them chose the white doll as better than them and black people. But one young lady, and this is where the Trauma Trance comes in, one young lady who gets a lot of airtime is asked by the interviewer, which doll is the good doll? And she almost breaks her neck at the speed of sound, picking up the white doll. And she puts it up by her face. Then the interviewer says, which doll is you? And the little girl, listen, if you go get the film A Girl Like Me, it's on YouTube, it's free. You will see this with your own eyes. The little baby, who must be like 6, 7 years old, first of all, she's traumatized. She's instantly traumatized. That's important.
Yeah.
And she reaches, and now what's powerful about this moment is that she has a witness. You know, she don't get to go into complete fantasy land because there's a human being in front of her who asks her this question. And she knows, whether it's unconscious or conscious, that she has to make a relatively rational decision that she dreads. So she waffles back and forth, and then finally, with dread all over her face, she picks the black doll. You can tell she's depressed about it, and she slowly holds it up. And so I call that moment of this, you gotta make sure you're looking at me, of going back and forth like that, the trauma trance. And that's the trauma trance that we live in. We're perpetually questioning the value of blackness. We're perpetually hypnotized into thinking that whiteness is better. These days, the manifestations of it it's almost as much black blondes as white blondes with straight hair these days.
Are you coming for the weave? Wait a minute, hold up.
I'm telling you right now, I can't stand weaves.
Wait a minute, so are you coming for black women? Because let me tell you what they say. Because I love black women, have to. I'm a black woman, so let's be clear. Love black women. So what I want to ask, because I hear it all the time, because I'm a person that I don't believe in dye. I don't believe in changing my hair texture. I'm African. My hair is coily. It's going to be coily, nappy, all that. But I don't have a problem with my sisters because I know we are the most creative beings on earth. So a lot of women say the reason why I do it is it's just creativity. They just want to be different. They want to try something new. Talk to me about that.
Well, this is the same community that could have a robust conversation with you to justify the use of the N-word.
That's true.
And the N-word came from dehumanizing, murderous, monstrous white supremacist serial killers who murdered and hung black people and dehumanized black people to the basic level and psychologically raped and tortured us so we could be submissive and be at risk perpetually to do what they wanted us to do. That's where the word came from. The word did not come from a cute little village outside of Ghana. It came from racist, monstrous white folks. So Black people think that we use it because we quote unquote reclaiming it. No, we use it because it was forced on us generationally. And as I told you earlier in this conversation, there's so many things that we need to resolve, heal from, crystallize, manage, and purge from our systems that we won't have the conversation about. So as a result of a lack of conversation about the reparative damage of Black people in resolving it, we go shopping instead. We go to white Jesus instead. We eat instead, which is why diabetes and obesity is a problem in the Black community. We do all this.
We get high.
All this deadening stuff to deaden the trauma that we have. And so that's one of the reasons why we justify the N word, because we are used to it, just like we're used to anti-Blackness. So in that context, you're going to have all kinds of surface explanations for pathological behavior, like wearing straight white blonde hair. Well, it's just to be creative. No, you can look. You can't be more creative than what you can do with Black hair in its natural form, and you know that.
Better say it. Now stop. That is the answer to that question. You cannot be more creative with African hair than any other hair. Straight hair cannot be more creative than coily hair. Let's be clear to that. So if you're going to a hair that's not even as creative as your hair, what are you saying? But see, that's not how we're seeing it.
That's because we're not having a conversation about it, and we're in a trance. We're in a trauma trance. When you're in a trauma trance, you do all kinds of insane stuff that you would not do if you were awake. People, for example, you do not see a epidemic of white women. You'll find everything if you get out a large enough microscope and you're looking and looking and looking. But generally, white women are not wearing Afro puffs.
Nope.
They are not wearing fros. They're not wearing locks. They're wearing their hair.
A lot of them are with the locks, but no, they're not.
No, I've seen white people with locks. I've seen white women trying to do Afro
locks. They wear more locks than anything.
But if you get my point, is that
that's not regular.
It's not the norm by a long shot. I travel across this country all the time, and I got to go through several states and sometimes through all of them before I find somebody white with some locks. Yep. That's rare. And let's be clear. Let's be real clear. Black people are the poster children for cool. We're the poster children for swag. And our youth represent it well. So all youth want to copy Black swag. All youth want to, that's where Marky Mark came from, a so-called Mark Wahlberg and Ice Cube, Icy Ice, what the hell his name is? Ice Baby, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. This new boy, what's his name? Justin somebody. And my point is that these people, as why they're children, and this is a very important part of my point, they will mimic Black people, but when they become grown, the locks are gone, baby.
Yep.
No locks. No rap.
And they're white cells.
They become grown white people.
Yep.
So let's be clear. Let's be real clear. And even when they
use it right now, he's Mark Wahlberg.
Right, and if you call him
white man,
he will
fight you. You don't see him with his
Oh.
pants hanging off. You don't see any of the stuff he did to get into the rap game. That's what we got to do. We got to grow up.
Right, but we got to know why we haven't grown up. The trauma trance unresolved stunts our growth.
You better say it. And let me give you another example because it's so. And I want you to hear this. A friend of mine who was actually in prison and was getting high for a very long time. So now, at this point in their life, they said the reason why they're a little immature because when you go into these systems, you stop right there. Your growth stops. So when you come out of prison, you're immature because you've been doing the trauma of prison or doing the trauma, all of the things that you went through, you have stunted, your growth stopped there. So she said, when you're coming out, you're just as immature as when you went in. I said,
not only that, I used to work in a prison. I used to work at Biscayne's prison in East Los Angeles in California. If you've never been to prison and worked in a prison, you don't know nothing about it. It's another world.
Wow.
It's a transformative, and not in a positive way, a transformative experience that's full of trauma, that's full of manhood and male compromise, that's full of emasculation and the sexual and psychological feminization of people, particularly Black men, but all men who are in prison. And your whole world is turned upside down, and you living on another planet. It is not. It is not normal society, and frankly, American normal society is crazy outside the prison.
Exactly.
But it's even more insane, intense in terms of insanity and pathology in prison.
Yeah.
So you're right.
And that's intentional. Remember that someone created that. So don't act like, oh, this is what happens and oh, that's how it went down. No, this was created. It's intentional. It is acting as it should, because it's very hard to control people who can think, who are trying to better themselves, who want to do, you have to keep people chaotic. You have to keep their minds oppressed. These are intentional movements for what? Industry. The problem with America is they want to put industry in everything. So am I right on that? I think the industry portion of a prison is the reason why we see all of this intentional chaos.
Yeah, that's one of the fringe benefits of it for white supremacy mythology and
for capitalism, I'm saying.
But from my perspective, the real issue is white power, and white control, and Black confusion and instability. And absenteeism, because when brothers are locked up in jail, they're absent.
Yep. Sisters too. Yep. Everybody's absent. Wow.
Yeah.
So, okay. So now, as a social cultural architect, what is that? How does that explain in the Black community, and why is it needed?
Well, our society, as a normal way of being, is anti-Black. It's anti-Black. I'll give you an example, and I'll try to be brief because I know I talk a lot, but this is one point what I mean. I was invited some years ago to Atlanta to be on an advisory board for a men's health project.
Okay.
The invitation said that they had a statistical analysis of why the project was funded, and it talked about Black male health statistics. And I said, sure. I didn't live in Atlanta at the time. I lived in DC. So I went to Atlanta to be a part of it. When I got there, they had passed around their portfolio to everybody who was going to be on the board. And it said Men of Color Project. I said, the statistics, and I was nice about it. I purposely try to make sure I don't have an attitude because I'm already a dark-skinned Black man with a low voice, and that's scary in this society. So I said, why does it say men of color? The statistics were about Black men, and everybody at this table is Black, including me. When did we become men of color? And I said, what color?
Oh.
And to me, that was a simple question, but I've been in these situations before because Black people are anti-Black, so I'm not surprised by anything.
You contracted everybody contracted when you said that, I'm sure.
Yes, and it got quiet.
I know.
It got completely quiet. And I was sitting there, still leaning forward, like clearly waiting for an answer. And then one guy finally said, well, we don't want to offend anybody. And I said, as calm as I could be, which was a challenge, offend who? More silence. Because when you're in a trance and you're going back and forth between your right mind and your trance state, there's a potential debate going on that creates crickets. And what's going on in the debate is, should I say that I'm a white accommodationist? Or what do I say here? Because I have never even thought about this question. I'm just going with the anti-Black flow or the Black minimizing flow and calling men of color and going about my business. And here he come trying to take it out of the abstract and make us have to be explicit about our anti-Black decisions.
Yeah. And
I said, so what's going on? Well, we don't want to offend anybody. And I said, offend who? Mm-hmm. And you might instinctively know that they said, well, And I said, no, I would like for you to articulate. Offend who? So anyway, without going too much long with this, they were talking about white folks.
Mm-hmm.
They were worried about offending their funders, and offending this and that. And I told them, I said, look, thank you for inviting me. If you need any consultation on this project, I'm willing to help, but I cannot be on a board of grown Black folks, Black men who are involved in their own marginalization. I went on back to Washington, D.C. So I say that to you is because that was the Trauma Trance. When you ask people questions, Black people questions, and they're quiet, they're doing the same thing that the little girl did in the video, who goes back and forth about what to do because she's in the Trauma Trance. We're
but I think we don't know we're in the Trauma Trance.
No, we don't know. We have no idea we're in the.
So how do we fix something we have no clue that we're there? So many people say, I'm scared of white folks. I don't care about them, but you do care about them.
Oh yes,
and you do mind them, and you do worry about what they're doing. So
I got one more story. If you don't mind.
Go ahead.
I was at I think it's called the Anne Arundel Mall. Arundel Mill. And some of the people who are watching this who have heard me speak, they've heard me say this before, but it's so powerful in terms of the trance. And that I want to ask you a question about what do we do about it. I was minding my own business, walking around the Arundel area, and these two young men who happen to be same gender loving men who likely were gay identified men were following me, and they finally called to me and said, "You're that Manago guy, aren't you? You're that." They couldn't remember my first name. They could remember my last name. "You're that Manago guy, huh?" And I said, "I'm not sure. I might be. You're him. You're him. You don't like white people, do you? That's not right. You say things about white people that are hateful." So, like I said, I stayed very calm as a strategy and to keep them engaged. I said, "What have I said about white people that's racist or that's problematic?" You know what you say. And see, when people say stuff like, they don't have no answers.
They can't recall.
And they're playing games. Mm-hmm. So I said, "No, I don't know, because I don't remember doing that." "Well, it's well known that you don't like white people." And I said to them, I said, "Have you ever in your whole life followed somebody in a public space and got in their case and scolded them for not liking Black people? Ooh. And for being anti-Black? Have that ever upset you, where you were so concerned that you ran somebody down in a public place and said, you should not be anti-Black, you should not call Black people the N-word, you should not use negative terminology to describe Blacks?" And they went into the Trauma Trance. I call that a
trance.
They went into a disorienting dilemma. They were already in the trance.
Yeah.
They went into a disorienting dilemma. Now, I didn't coin that term, though I did coin Trauma Trance. I don't want to get credit for stuff I didn't do. But they went into a disorienting dilemma. They were disoriented, like, oh shit. I said, well, you're Black men. Think about that. Think about how you running around here like white people need your help. Chasing me down to tell me that I'm racist, but you never get mad about anti-Blackness. So what I do, among many things around the Trauma Trance, is I developed a methodology called CTCA, which stands for Critical Thinking and Culture Affirmation. And what the CTCA methodology does, first of all, it creates safe space, chill space, comfortable space, well-nourished with food and color and music space for Black people to be in.
So it's critical thinking.
Critical thinking and culture affirmation. CTCA. Mm-hmm. And once we create this nurtured space with some music by usually Anita or Luther or maybe Erykah Badu, but not Tyrone, because that's an anti-Black male song. And all kinds of stuff to create a vibe, candles, images, videos of with that song by Angie Stone called Brother. You hear that song? And songs about like Runaway Girl, like by LL Cool J, and all this Black affirming.
Why ain't nothing new? Ain't no new music affirming for Black folks.
No.
Ain't no Lil Wayne, Lil Durk.
Well, there are some Lil Wayne, but they ain't got nothing to do with affirming Black people. No, white people, don't get me started. See,
wait,
whiteness knows what to quell and what to drown out. They know what to do. So that's going on. We talking about it now is ass and bitches and hoes. That's what we're talking about now.
Yeah.
But we create this space, and then we start engaging stuff that I purposely am not going to get into because I don't want to talk about the methodology to be ripped off in your show. People got to come to our work and experience it and get the real deal. But we create activities, exercises, questions, things and we provide information for people to actually critically do self-evaluation. And we put them in a position where they have no choice but to actually check themselves about whether they're anti-Black or not, or whether they know anything about being Black from a historical perspective or not. And in most cases, they don't know. We live in a white supremacist psychological prison. And a lot of us don't know that.
We don't even know it. Yeah.
And as a result of the CTCA environment, it becomes clear. One of the things I think is important to articulate is that we don't tell people what to think. We tell them to think. And we create an environment or a container where they do all this thinking.
And that's new because we're every day being taught what to think and what to do. We don't understand that everything that we're doing is being pre-prescribed for us. You know, the media tells us what's good and what's bad. We listen to the news. The news tells us who's good and who's bad, or where to live and where not to live. So we never think. We just do what society puts out there for us.
We're in a trance.
That's another trance.
Well, it's all the same trance in terms of consequences, but we have shows on TV like Snowfall and Empire and Power, and they have a new show called I Am the King, starring a Black woman. All kinds of stuff that's built around violence and drugs. It's difficult to find, extremely difficult to find a love story, a passionate, joyous, colorful, vital love story between two Black people in the popular stage. You have cable and wires and antenna and all kinds of stuff to find it.
You might have to create it.
Right. Well, you can create it all day, and people are creating it, but it won't make prime time. There are African film festivals. But my point to you is that we live in this wound, in this insult called the anti-Black insult called United States culture, that we're told to pray about our struggles, not to resolve them now. We're told to go to school, go to church, get a good education, and get a good job. We're not taught to be critical thinkers and to live powerfully and intentionally on behalf of the protection of Black people and the empowerment and affirmation of Black people, and teaching Black people how to navigate through this society with a critical eye so they can deflect all of the anti-Black implications, like the lack of a love story. So when they come out of CTCA, this stuff, they become acutely aware of all of this. And they have a whole different framework in terms of how they look at things and how they deal with other Black people. And it's an unlearning process. Matter of fact, we call our academy the Unlearning Academy, because we have unlearning all kinds of garbage.
Listen, you guys got to access that. How do they access that type of your system? How does a person be a part of something like that where they want to really look at themselves and see how anti-Black or, start resolving some of the issues? Because most of the things that's happening to us is just manifestations of not dealing with trauma. So we see how you pack for so long and then it's like a dynamite, it explodes. And we see this very irrational behavior from our young people and irrational behaviors in cities and even marriages. People can't even deal with small problems because they blow up.
I call it, and again, this is not an original phrase for me. A guy named Charles Hamilton is who introduced me to this concept, an associate of mine in Los Angeles. I call it the tick, tick, boom syndrome.
Tick, tick, boom. Damn it.
Yeah. Now, that's not what he called it. He called tick, tick, boom something else, but I took it and reframed it as a syndrome. And we're always on the verge of going off.
Always.
And it's usually on each other, though. But
That's the problem because of the proximal, and then we're remember now we're guided to be around only each other. See, no one talks about that. Then that's intentional. Like you supposed to be only around your own, and then we're gonna make it chaotic and make it decay and all of this food deserts, all of these issues when you are galvanized. So what you gonna do? You're gonna eat each other alive, and that's what we see. But this behavior, we got to know that people aren't just built to kill and hurt and maim and hurt themselves and talk about them. This has been an intentional effort. So it has to be an intentional effort to break it down. And that's what I'm saying is we got to intentionally work on our trauma. And we had lunch Saturday, and we talked about something, and I want to talk to the people. Listen, we 55 minutes in, but we got to bring this one in. The relationship, damn it, between Black women and Black men.
yes,
The relationship between, because that's where it starts. We are not relating. We are not loving each other. We have this very, very, very confrontational relationship, this very, very defensive relationship. And we got to see that who is faring from, who benefits from that, because it sure ain't Black people. So Dr. Nago, let's roll into that. Then we're going to talk about your retreat. You know, we're going to segue all through there, and then we're going to get out of here. But we definitely got to talk about Black women and Black men. Let's talk about
it. Okay. What about it?
Well, the breakdown, you know, like why aren't we relating? And even what I said to you on Saturday is like Black women are being put into this space. We're definitely overachieving, and we're overachievers. We've always been. That's nothing new. But then that is being weaponized. That ability to continue to survive and continue to improve ourselves is being weaponized. But we're in spaces that Black men can't get in, and then we think we're fine there, and we don't know that we're actually offending Black men with some of our behaviors because we're so busy trying to fit in with the peoples and be educated.
Well, fit in with the white peoples. Let's be clear.
Yes, with them people.
Even after over half a century of dealing with this stuff, I still am. I'm not dead and yet. You know, I'm still feel it in my body, and there's grief there that I'm alive to in terms of what we've gone through. Yes. But if I remember correctly, the context that we were talking about or that I raised as a concern was Black women being seen, among other things, as being politically powerful.
Yes. That's how we got into it.
And being the ones who put Kamala Harris into the White House or the first vice president, and they would even take credit for Biden and this coalition.
Atlanta and all of these.
Right.
Yeah.
And what's ironic about that, particularly when some of these Black women have complaints about Black men, is that simultaneously to all this white codependent success, which is a contradiction in terms, ain't no such thing as Black white codependent success. That's Black people operating inside of white success. So let's be clear. But anyway, Black men, George Floyd, Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, we can go on and on with the high profile murders. Jordan Neely, who walked into the subway in New York saying, "I'm hungry and I'm tired of being hungry and I'm broke," and then was murdered. Black men are watching all of this and living in a patriarchal society that they're encouraged inadvertently to replicate, which is a very evil, toxic patriarchal framework that this country was built on top of. And Black men are suffering in silence. And ironically, Black boys are raised mostly by Black women who often, not always, there's exceptions to everything, but are often too subjective about their own personal pain and too occupied with that to look at making sure their child has a healthy self-concept as an at-risk male, as somebody who belongs prototypically to the most endangered group in the United States of America, that they're being neglected. And then while they're being neglected, and it's all inadvertent, none of this is on purpose. Black women are not getting up in the morning to neglect. We're human beings who are unhealed, who are unresolved.
So going about your life is neglectful, but you're just going about your regular life. Yes.
Exactly. For example, when they killed Dylan, when Dylan Roof shot those 12 people and killed 9, and
with the Burger King,
all this other kind of stuff, I asked Black parents, did you talk to your children about that and check in with them? And the majority of them, even mental health professionals, said no. And the people who are particularly impacted by all this is Black boys. And I've been doing presentations before where there's little boys in the audience who literally start crying when I talk about certain things, because they have to repress everything.
Yeah.
They didn't grow up to be an out of control man, or an emotionally confused man, or a man who's chasing white women, or a man who don't even want no woman, or we can go on and on and on and on, all these things that occur, and there's no rational dialogue about it because Black men are too humiliated or confused to initiate the dialogue, and Black women are too busy being successful and upwardly mobile and running behind Biden and being politically relevant, and forgetting about Black men. And instead of making it a we, they're making it an I.
But let's say, are you saying that Black women are doing that, or that's the messaging, and we are definitely falling in line? Because I think that's the messaging to keep it divisive. Because you got to keep the division.
That's what's going on. What's going on is that there is no conversation about it. There's nothing but pathology and anti-Blackness and all kinds of incarceration, confusion.
Yes.
Everything going on, and there's no reasonable conversation. When somebody like Michael Brown is murdered, or Trayvon is murdered, or even when Sandra Bland was murdered, we're temporarily, from a fractured ego perspective, we feel fronted on video. So temporarily we act out, but then we almost instantly relapse back into normalized white supremacy, as if the crisis is gone.
Yes.
Until the next body shows up.
And to the point now where we expect the body. It's like, oh, okay.
That's not what healthy people do.
Healthy people don't react that way. And that's what we have to understand. When you see your child being killed and you could swallow that, something's wrong. When you see other people's children who could be killed, that either you know or you don't know, but they can come from you, something is wrong. Women, we got to look at that. Like, why are we so fine with what's going on? And not that we like, oh,
we're not fine. We're not fine. See,
but what are we doing?
No, see, when you're let me try to give you another example that you will understand. We're not fine. We're not accepting anything. We are familiar with something dysfunctional. It's familiar, like pig feet, or macaroni and cheese or whatever. We're familiar with these things. In your life and time, you've met a male or female, usually the assumption is that it's female, who's brilliant, beautiful, sometimes well-employed, sometimes quite successful, quote unquote, who's in a domestic violence relationship. And you wonder, if you don't understand behavior to the depth that I do, what's going on? They're smart, they're beautiful, they can have any man they want or any woman they want. Why are they staying here being pimped? And then they're judged instead of people understanding the side effects of unresolved trauma. You go into a trance, and a good pimp knows how to pimp the trance. Because that's what they're doing. They're pimping trauma, the trauma trance.
So that's what's happening to us. We all being pimped.
Oh, are you serious? Oh, we have a, metaphorically speaking, there's a white man with a huge pimp hat and a feather in his hat who's telling his hoes what to do, and we the hoes. And we have hoes who play basketball. We have hoes who are news show anchors. We have hoes who are movie stars. We have hoes who are singers who are making money. We have hoes who live in mansions. White people got hoes doing all kinds of stuff. A non-hoe would use their experience to do what Jews do for Jews, and what white gays do for white gays, and what Asians do for Asians. Make sure that people are hooked up. But what they do, and I'm not going to say no names right now, but I want people to figure out who they are, is that there's some black men who are trying to buy a major black-faced, but it's really white TV network, and white folks are making sure that whoever they give it to ain't about nothing for black folks, who's going to sit up there and be pimped and look good. Because one thing you know about black people, because we're so insecure, we are the masters of looking good. Mm-hmm. No matter what.
No matter what.
We're going to be swagging and stepping into quicksand. But on the bright side, an hour and 5 minutes into this conversation, on the bright side, this is all curable. It's all resolvable. Black mental health, black self-conceptual health, and black common sense is right under the surface, dormant under this madness.
So it just needs to be you need to break the trance to oxygen. Yes. It just needs oxygen. So you're saying even all the trauma that we have, all of the heaviness that we carry, right under that is freedom. Y'all, we got to get free. You know, my mantra at the beginning of the year, and a whole 23 is free in 23. Listen, you got to get free. So we got to look at this trauma trance that we under. That is like the number. I love you. Did you coin that one? Is that yours? Because I know you got a few. So that's yours. The trauma trance is real. It's real. And I think a lot of what's not real is the recognition of what is trauma. You know, a lot of people that say, oh, that's how it is. Pray it away. It's no pray it away. You got to work it away. It's intentional.
Prayer is a distraction, particularly the way that we've been trained to use prayer. Because what people don't understand,
they're coming.
Oh, they can look. Come on.
You said prayer is. Oh, they coming.
Prayer is a distraction. I'm gonna give you an example of the power of prayer. China, who's full of Buddhists and all kinds of other things, is powerful on the planet Earth.
Yes.
Africa, which is full of Christians, is not.
Ooh.
The black community got liquor stores and churches.
Yeah.
The white community has Targets, you know, and Whole Foods and other stuff, and they're doing quite well. They don't got churches everywhere. Now, I want to be clear. I am not an atheist. We've been trained so much that we think if you don't run behind white Jesus, you're atheist. No, there's a world bigger than what white folks have told y'all. There's a whole reality that's dimensional and huge that goes beyond the prison of whiteness. That's bigger than that, and that's the size of humanity. And I am a very spiritual person. I'm clear as a bell about the presence of a spiritual being, if you will. Not being, I'm sorry, I don't want to use those cliches. Spirituality surrounds my life, and my life has always been informed by a presence outside of myself.
Absolutely.
But it ain't King James, it ain't white Jesus.
So you're saying a part of the trance is our spirituality and our
religion. It ain't spirituality.
It's the performance of Christianity, which is religion.
It's religion. It ain't
spirituality. Our religious affiliation. That's a problem for us. That's a part of the trance.
It's a huge problem. It's a huge slavery-born problem, like the N-word.
The Christians coming for you, bro. So I just wanted you to make sure that that's what you're saying. I mean, because listen, it is when we talk about Christ and we talk about God, the first thing we say is you don't question God. You know what goes down.
But to be clear, I'm not questioning God. I'm questioning people. I want to be real clear. I'm questioning people. I'm questioning people. Jesus. First, I'm gonna tell you something that a lot of these people don't know. Jesus Christ did not go to church
at all. He was not a Christian.
Jesus Christ did not go to church. Jesus Christ. The story of Jesus Christ, as it's told, Jesus was not a pimp.
Listen.
These people who are in these churches are pimps.
I don't want no problem. Listen. You messing with my followers. Let me stop.
Yeah, but they got.
Huh?
No, but what they need to do is follow love, follow self-respect, follow logic, follow coming out of the trance. They need to follow the affirmation of Black people and need to understand that God, if you will, does not need a middleman. God don't need a middleman. God, these middlemen are self-appointed, like Donald Trump. God does not need a middleman. God is the spiritual energy and phenomena is equally accessible to all of us and does not need a human being or somebody in human form as a conduit. That's a myth. That's BS.
That's i.e. minister, pastor, bishop, all them. He don't need that. That's what he's saying now. I'm just saying what my brother said. So I want us to understand this conversation is an hour and 10 minutes. This is amazing. We went from the trauma trance, the relationships between Black women and Black men, and the trauma that's there, the tick boom syndrome. I mean, we talked about it all. The CTCA, critical thinking and cultural affirmation. And we just ended in how spirituality not spirituality, excuse me,
religion,
the performance of Christianity, which is a religion or a performance of any thing that allows you to be in a trance. That's a part of our trance. It's this religion.
It absolutely is. It teaches us to never go into our right mind. It keeps us in our white mind, not the right mind. Christianity and all that kind of stuff. Wow. But getting back to solutions, I want to say that part of the work that you asked me about includes that we will be, and we have been, conducting retreats.
That's what we want to talk about.
3-day retreats where we get away from this society and all of its influences and all of its strategies to keep us in the trance, and are in a totally clean environment where we get to learn how to purge and unlearn white supremacy mythology, anti-Blackness, and repair the divide between not only Black men and women, which is an essential divide to resolve, but the divide between feminine people, masculine people, different types of Black folks. But not at the same time, we do different work for different purposes with different groups. When we do this retreat that we have coming up for men and women, it will likely be predominantly, for lack of a better term, heterosexual people, Black women who like men and Black men who like women, and others may come if they like, but that's the agenda.
That's the agenda. And the relationships between Black men and Black women. Right. Okay.
We're also going to have
next retreat. That's your next retreat.
That's the next retreat. Yes.
Okay. And tell us where the retreat will be. We need to know where and what that means and what you're doing.
Okay. Well, for more information on the retreat, you can email us at alkebulan. That's spelled ALKEBULAN 2024. Alkebulan 2024. And as I mentioned before,
at what? Gmail?
At gmail.com. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I was like, what kind of email is that? But you know what? You got Alkebulan. I said Alkebulan. So I've been saying Alkebulan for as long as I've known it.
You can say Alkebulan. You can say it's the same word. It's ALKEBULAN. And the retreat center is called the Alkebulan Oasis and Retreat Center. And only people who come for our community to come together and heal and engage each other and unpack the things that got us in our trauma trance, and to wake up and become an asset to each other in the Black community.
Well, I love that. We're gonna there's gonna be more coming about this retreat center. It's new. It's not far. It's in Virginia. I might say that, right?
Yes.
I can't wait to tour this space. And coming soon, we're going to do some retreats here. I mean, he's already going forward, but I'm definitely going to do some. Because when we retreat from this society, we are open to get new downloads.
That's right.
We need new downloads. And sometimes we need to get away and go and retreat and also be in a cultural space where you can let go and let something come in.
Yes.
So that's what we're trying, because the process is to get Black people in a space where we can start doing great things together, where you can unite and we can be better people. But we got to do things differently. We can't just keep, oh, okay, forget it, work, work, work. We got to deal with our stuff.
And we have to be, and I'm not going to go on no tangent because I know we're near the end, but we have to be honest and clear about what we've been through. Because we often talk about what we should do as if we've never done it. That we should come together, that we should cooperate with one another, that we should invest in one another, but we've done that. We did that in Rosewood. We did that in Black Wall Street. We did that in Allentown, Central California. We did that in D Street. We did that throughout Baltimore. Once upon a time, we could not wait to see each other and embrace each other and build for each other and affirm for each other and to help each other prosper. But in each instance, this is part of the Trauma Trance too, in each instance, without exception, with the movement in Philadelphia being one of the last examples where they literally dropped bombs on that Black community.
Us. Yes.
There's been a seriously vicious, brutal attack on us every time we've prospered as a collective. And one of the reasons, there's lots of them, but one of the reasons why that's happened, because the same reason that Donald Trump followed the Obamas, Donald Trump followed Michelle and Barack as a backlash for him having the nerves and her having the nerves to be a beautiful African woman in the White House with class and intellectual capacities, some would say genius, if you will, and being a huge contradiction to the myth of white supremacy in your face. They had to get the nuttiest, craziest, over-the-top, exaggerated nutcase that they could find to make up for that.
To undermine that, yes.
And in terms of Black Wall Street, they had to blow it up and kill it to undermine it. And we're still living in the unresolved aftermath of such huge trauma. And we don't know our history. So we're thinking, we need to come together. We don't know. We came together. Not only did we come together, you talked about the breakfast program, which the public schools replicated. The bus systems in the United States of America, we created that too.
The lottery, we could go on.
We go on and on, but we don't know.
We don't know. The refrigerator, the engine, we can go on and on. The air conditioner. We don't even understand how powerful this nation, the traffic light,
deodorant,
Black men. But let me tell you the new deodorant. Eat some greens. Eat your greens. Detox your body. You don't need deodorant. But anyway, I'm telling you that's the way. If you eat your collards, you eat your greens, there's no deodorant needed because it does the filtering for smells. That's a herbal treatment right there. You know, that's a Black fact right there, brother Cleo.
I got lots of them. I'm real familiar with Black flags, but I just wanted to reiterate the interruption of how wonderful we can be and have been. Mm-hmm. We need to reverse the consequences of that interruption that's dormant in the Black body, that we have to do trance-breaking work, in my opinion, through CTCA, among other options, I'm sure, to be reawakened into Black affirmation and self-love and respect as a people. We have to. That's
your final thought.
That's final enough as the ambulance goes by your house.
Oh, you know we're in the inner city. That's a Black fact too. You better get it right. So listen, what I do want you to do though is give us a jewel to go by, to take with us. This has been an amazing conversation. I mean, I love when you come through because you always break down all of the things that we're not clear about. This is the inner city guys. So that's what's going on outside. But yeah, so leave a jewel with the people. Let's inspire before we get up out of here.
I hope it's a jewel. I want to reiterate that Black is wonderful. Black people represent the oldest children of the earth and have done wonderful things that if you know what I know, you'd be amazed, and you could never call yourself an N-word or say act your age, not your color, or sit your Black ass down, or all these anti-Black implications. If you knew what I knew and what some others know as well about, and if you recognize yourself, if you recognize the majesty of Blackness, and how everybody's always copying us
Yes.
and appropriating us.
Yes.
And if you notice that youth of all races want to replicate the brother and the sister, Black youth swagger, talk, language, slang, but the white folks do grow up at some point and become straight up white folks and leave that alone and become grown security guards for white supremacy. So we need to grow up too and come out of the trauma trance. And one thing I want to mention too about the retreats, we have joy, we have food, we have a good time, we celebrate our gifts. It's not just serious, even though the whole thing is serious. We've been through enough where we have to make it a comfort zone, a nourishing, nurturing experience while we transform and reawaken into Black self-respect, self-conceptual health, and learning to be a behavioral asset to Black people. But I want to reiterate that it's all resolvable. And I want to reiterate again that we've done it before, but it was interrupted. This time, it won't be interrupted. We're working on making it long. And I'm working on making sure that I ain't the only one that can do this. So when they do some create a crisis or scandal about Cleo, whatever they're going to do to try to compromise, because that's what they do, there'll be other people ready to keep things going. Because this ain't nothing but a love thing. This ain't nothing but mental health and well-being work.
I love that. And that's one of the things we got to do too. Understand that the attack is coming and we have to prepare others and understand that what we hear about people is propaganda. So take your time, because that is the attack. To always, if you can't control them, then you break them down to nothing.
That's right.
That's how this system works. It's worked every time. And actually now Black folks are being a part, they're partner to it. So we got to know the triggers and the tricks.
But anyway, we're partners to it, not because we are simply partners. We have been conditioned to be anti-Black.
Yeah, the conditioning, acculturation, absolutely.
We got to put that in context. We are conditioned to be anti-Black, and it's a growing epidemic. Anti-Black is a growing epidemic, and we have to intervene.
I love that. Let me say one thing. I think a lot of people, when you say anti-Black, it sounds so much like an attack, but it's really what it is. Because it's hard for you to know as yourself you're anti-Black and you're Black, but that is what's happening. We have Black people who are functioning as agents for anti-Blackness, and we don't even know it. So we got to recognize it. So that's really what we're talking about. Because when people hear anti-Black, they're like, "Why would you say that? I'm Black." But you're still functioning in that realm. You know what I mean?
Most Black people are anti-Black.
Wow.
Most Black people.
Wow, that's a heavy statement. So, Brother Cleo, I really appreciate you. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'll give you an example where you can actually figure.
Okay.
People, ain't nobody come but some crickets.
And say it again because you went out. Give me the example.
Go outside right now. Say, Black people, let's get together right now and affirm Black people. All you're going to get is crickets.
You know, ain't nobody saying a word. Wow, that's sad. But it's
like when Jordan Neely was murdered in broad daylight in New York, his murderer got $3 million. How much money did the murdered person's family get?
I'm telling you, that's the country we live in.
Israel gets millions of dollars from this country every year because it's a sacred space for Jews. Haiti should be our sacred space because that's where the revolution that where they freed themselves and gave us a blueprint or black print, if you will, on how to do it. We should celebrate them, and they should be our Israel. But
unfortunately, we're not even in that realm. We don't even know ourselves.
But we can get there, though.
We got to get there. We got to get there. And Haiti needs our help. Lord, Haiti needs our help. But anyway, listen, it's been a pleasure. This conversation is contracted into so much, and I love when I have you on. You got to come on more, and not just to talk. It's just, I'm so inspired by you. I really am. I'm so inspired by your analysis. It comes from and then you name all of these things. You got all these catchphrases. You're like a rapper. You're like a rapping psychologist.
The rapper.
You dropping these bars all the time. Tick tick boom. CTCA. You know you got all of these. Yeah. You're I'm gonna call you.
I'm just trying to help. That's all.
Just trying to help. But we appreciate that. And that's what the KingHim series is. It's a series where we platform greatness in Black and men, and especially Black men. And we want to say thank you to your work and for your heart for Black people. We need that in our community.
Well, thanks for coming on. It's always wonderful talking with you.
Thanks for coming on. I wish you a good Wednesday, and we definitely got to stay in touch. You got to tell us about these retreats, because definitely we got to get ourselves in some retreats. We got to leave here and go to Virginia and kind of get some of this stuff out of us. For real.
Yes.
I'm telling you. We got to get some of this stuff out of us. So come back soon. We boxed up and out. Let's get them deuces going.
Yes. All right, sister. I'll holler at you later.
You got to get your deuces, bro. What is this?
I'm not going to be cliche. But anyway, all right, sister.
Have a good night, Cleo. Thank you so much.
You do the same thing.
Wait a minute. You know what? Hold on for a minute. I'm going to end the broadcast. You don't go nowhere. Stay right there. Stay right there for a second.